It's a long time.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's great.
Mhm.
Well, how have
Yeah.
you all been?
Very happy.
But
Good.
How are you? How
Were
are you?
were you able to go into Quizlet and review all of that vocabulary?
vocabulary. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
in Quizlet, so that you could hear all of the pronunciation and everything?
Mhm.
Mhm. So were you able to connect to that? Well,
Mhm.
we can probably send the link again so that then you can, try again, because I think that would be really great for everybody's, refreshing and rebooting as we get ready to move into presentation time.
Mhm. To
Yes,
presentation.
the Quizlet, the Quizlet. Yes, link. We're gonna send it in WhatsApp. In WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe then people can join in if they hadn't done so. That was what we had sent you the last time that we met, so that you could be doing that on your own during your holidays and so on. Okay, well, we probably should get started so that to take care of your time. Had
Mhm.
you any questions for us so far before we begin with the next piece? Yeah.
Do you want to ask us something?
Okay. Well, we'll get started with this, and then also we will review the Change Maker playbook that we sent you, because that will really help you create your presentation that you will practice with us, and then you'll be able to use it when you're paired up with a collaborative partner, of the Eastern European partners. So we'll get started. Hopefully you did receive all of the emails that we sent so far, correct?
Mhm.
Yes. So you got all of those emails. Okay. So today we were going to talk about participative leadership. And it seemed like a lot of you were leaning towards this style of leadership with your given projects. Okay. So in this case, you want to show the people that are on your team that you really want them to develop as people. So not only are you developing your project, but you're also developing the team's skills as an individual as well as a group, right? And because of that, you would be including them in the decision-making process. And at the same time, you're upskilling the employees. So it's almost like a double-sided coin. On one side, you're working on the project, and on the other side, you're feeding and developing the participants of your team. Okay, so they're growing as individuals, and your project is growing as a project. Okay, so it really has a lot of cooperative teamwork as a general characteristic, this particular style of leadership. All right, so we can move to the next one, Theo. All right, so clear your mind of can'ts. So basically, to be able to suspend disbelief or to be able to move forward with any project, the main thing is to stay in a positive can-do frame of mind. So basically always reframing for yourself how you're going to problem solve, how you're going to get to the solution, how you're going to work around any obstacle that comes forward, and how you're going to be able to find a viable solution to any problem that may arise, how you're going to hit your benchmarks, how you're going to achieve a success for every step of your project. So again, double-sided coin, every step of your project and every individual on your team. So all of those people on your team become a good force for positivity and success because they're all working together toward the completion of a successful project. Okay. So where are you at with your project at this moment? You can move the slide too, Theo. Where are you at, Mr. Dien, on your project right now? What step are you in?
My project.
Yeah,
For
where are you
example,
at?
for me, for
Yeah.
example, I'm student
Yep.
and professional. About
Yep.
my studies, I want to finish my memory and
Mhm.
to able in university to get my PhD completed in
Yeah.
university. And the
Right.
professional, I want to be grow up. That is say, right now, I'm a simple accountant, but I
Okay.
want to be an expert accountant to have like a CPA in
Yeah.
English. Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
Good. Well, there in completing your PhD, I think that that's one of the things that most candidates have to do is they have to find a very creative way of sustaining quality and excellence in your coursework, right? Because you have
That's true. Yeah.
obviously the classes that you have to take, but then in addition to the classes, then you'll start to have to work on your dissertation, and then
Mhm,
you'll have to work on your oral exams, which
mhm,
usually are related to topics, that show that you have developed certain skills.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
this videotape here is very interesting. You can listen to it later. We had sent you the link in the email, but we also put it in the WhatsApp. And it's good to listen to it in English, and then you can always have those subtitles in French if you want. Because I think one of the interesting things about moving forward swiftly in an accelerator is
Mhm.
to be able to have interesting ways of absorbing information, especially with a PhD. I think that one of the most interesting things with PhD candidates is that it's a long process that
Yes. Long process. Yeah. Mhm,
it requires discipline, right? So it
mhm,
requires that you can stick with that process, right? No matter what happens, you just keep going. It's just
mhm,
like that quote that we just saw
mhm,
about, clearing your mind of can't. It's always about, yes, you can do it, right?
mhm.
And
Yeah.
as you move and progress further, then you have these benchmarks, right? So where are you at with your coursework? Is your coursework almost complete, or you still have some more coursework?
Mhm, mhm.
Do you have more classes you have to take?
For example, right now in university, I have four master degree title, like
Okay.
trade master degree title,
Yeah.
auditor master degree title, and
Yeah.
bank auditor degree title. And without
Okay.
university, I have an relation and diplomacy master degree. But my object,
Great.
I want to be a professor. And when you want to be a professor, you must have at first a degree title like a PhD to be a professor in
Right.
university. And
Yeah.
it demeans it you must have a lot of effort. That is to say, you make a lot of travel and to buy a lot of book to make a good research that you can make you in the only way you can have a good result.
Yes. Right. Okay. Yes, that's exactly correct. And the other thing that's interesting about that is you can start with these small steps. And
Mhm,
I always found that's one of the things that I find very interesting of this Playmaker book that we sent you all. And let me just open that here to see if you can see it.
mhm,
Bear with me, because you know me and technology, but I will get there.
mhm,
Um, Let me find how to open it, that file. Okay, here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I
Yeah.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is something that we just sent you this week, and it's really important because it's a good example of a resource or a tool that you can all use, right? So it's a very good example of that. Let me just make sure that we are still recording this thing. Yeah, it looks like we still are recording. Great. So I can
I'm
just
still recording. I'm recording, Olivia. I
Oh,
can
good.
continue with the
I just want to
presentation.
show
I
it.
can continue with the
Yes, good.
presentation.
Okay, good. So in this change agent skills, this is built in lots of small pieces. Okay. So it's about really chunking down your thinking very clearly. And then in this space, you can, for example, either write something or draw a picture or write something in English or write something in French, because what we really want to do is capture all of your ideas very succinctly. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is very important for as a PhD candidate or even as a professor to be able to chunk down information to its smallest component. And then you can go from the big piece to the smallest piece to the big piece, you see? And so that's what gives you the breadth of experience, right? So we had talked about all of these things one by one in our earlier sessions, but now what we're asking you to do is go piece by piece, your own thoughts about your own situation. So in your situation, you want to become a professor, complete your PhD, and become an expert professor, like a CPA or an accountant. So thinking about, and in this case, we can just, you just grab one as an example about young people in your country, which is the target audience who will be your students, right? So are they understanding that accounting and dealing with finance is an important step for them as they become leaders of your country? You see, so it's almost like all of these aspects, and one by one, will help you to develop a bigger picture in terms of what it is that your bigger presentation, right, would end up being about. So what is youth work in your case? Why do you want to work with young university students, right? And for example, other people like yourself to become professors at the university, or maybe that are already a young professor at the university. How do they feel? How do they see young people at the university in Senegal? Are you finding that these students are more and more ready to embark on serious work, or are they less ready? Like when they enter the university as a freshman. What do you think?
But in Senegal, I
Yeah.
think that it's very, very, very difficult to, 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 to succeed in university.
Oh, okay.
Every time about a student, they make a strike with the government because they have a good scholarship, and sometimes they take the scholarship lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, and without the scholarship, they can do a good research. They can eat normally, and sometimes they needed to make some travel in the country or some research and such. And I think that some students who have a level for PhD, sometimes they give up the PhD because they have not afforded to continue to their studies.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Is it because of like do the students end up like having lots of strikes and things because the university is kind of like the platform for political expression?
Mhm.
Is that the
But
case there in Senegal or no?
In Senegal, so that will say, well, the government is not very serious for for the student, but we have a good professor in university, and sometimes the professor for Senegalese university, they prefer to travel every time to do some course in foreign and not in our country. That is say,
Mhm.
they make some code in part in Senegal, and those part they another part they make it in foreign, not in Senegal. And sometimes when you make a memory, you need to meet sometime the professor, and it's very difficult to meet them to progress our memory. It's very difficult.
Oh, so even the professors are not available.
Yeah. They are
Mm.
not available. Every time they travel, they make some leisure around the world and study. Sometimes they give some course another university. They make
Right.
not only their job in our country.
Yeah. Okay. So the university almost propels them into another, environment because they want to build a reputation for themselves, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm,
then, of course, who stays
mhm.
in Dakar to teach,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Yeah. So
Mhm,
it's almost like the professor that is either the researcher, the
mhm,
professor that is there to teach, or the
mhm,
professor that is there, to make groundbreaking innovations, and so he travels and so on and so forth. But
mhm.
somebody's got to teach.
Teach,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Mhm,
Yeah. And so basically, there aren't a lot of
mhm,
uh, teaching
mhm,
professors, if you will.
mhm.
Mhm. How's about the master students? Do they teach?
What for
The
me?
master students, yeah, like if you finish your master's degree,
Yeah.
do they let you
For,
teach?
for example, right now, I'm in the organization. I'm a simple accountant in this organization and finance man. That will say
Mhm.
that maybe next year I will study to teach in university like an assistant TD. That will say when I assistant to make
Yes.
some work for the young university at the first, second, and 3 year in university. You or for the student like a bachelor, not a master.
Yeah,
But when
yeah,
you have
right, I
a master,
understand.
you teach it for the bachelor, and when you have the doctorate, you will teach the master. It is a
No,
regel.
right. Okay,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm,
Well, but they've got that, yeah, but like you're saying, then who
mhm.
stays to teach the bachelor degree students?
It is, yeah. Mhm,
And then the other thing is, are the bachelor degree students equipped to
mhm,
embark on the rigor
mhm.
of university work, right?
Yeah,
Like, are they
yeah,
ready?
university
Which is
work.
kind of
Yes,
like,
yes.
yeah. So that video that we just put the link of for
Mhm,
you is an important video because it basically is dealing with that. So it's basically asking, like, in terms of using your creativity, is
mhm,
how you're going to be teaching or learning, because
mhm.
today's students have not been trained,
Right.
with that
Mhm,
rigor, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
in this change maker playbook, as you can see, each page is a subset question of a smaller piece so that you can answer it in that blank space. And
Mhm.
then ultimately, as you continue to, it continues to elaborate or flush
Mhm.
out, right? So
Yeah.
areas of excellence. What are the
Mhm.
areas of excellence that a bachelor degree student in finance or accounting needs to accomplish? You
Yeah.
see, so this basically allows you to think about or
Mhm,
rethink about, are
mhm,
the caveats that are in place now valid, or do we need to redefine those
mhm.
as if this was a new project, right? Because obviously there's been many professors, the university is very, prestigious and old and so on. But the
Mhm.
question is it addressing young people, so that it could continue to attract young people? Because obviously you need to have students, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's in the university profession, it's that story of publish or perish, like they say. So either you're publishing things and you're advancing the field in the name of the university. So there's
Mm-hmm.
that track. But at the same time, you have to teach. Yeah.
That's mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the really the crux of the issue, is that as social responsibility, what is the social responsibility of a professor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that project message? How is what you're going to be doing help the university attract and retain
Mm-hmm.
more students, right? Because maybe you have some students, but maybe they don't finish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that a phenomena that happens in Senegal?
Senegal.
Yeah,
But
do they finish? Do
for
they
example,
finish?
for me in Senegal,
Yeah, do
uh,
they finish their bachelor's degree or do they finish their master's?
sometimes they finish their bachelor degree. Sometimes they not finish the our like a bachelor or master degree. Sometimes we have some guys who finish it. Sometimes we have not finished it. For example,
Mm-hmm.
when we are in, for example, like uh, medicine department, they are accustomed, for example, to learn and to make a training professional another in the hospital. But when you are in another department like economics and management department, sometimes some guys they have not training professional to own something uh, to help them to perfection in our research and our studies. It's very difficult. In Africa in general, we are not accustomed to have ideas to take risk, you know,
Ah,
mm, at
okay.
first
Yeah,
risk,
yeah.
and we are not accustomed to have a good degree title like a master and PhD. Sometimes when you want to do, when you say that I want to be have a PhD or doctorate, some guy make think that you are crazy.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
difficult. It's very difficult, but because when you have a master degree, you have opportunity to have a job and see a job and another opportunity to exploit it. And when some guys they see you, you continue to make a degree title like a doctorate, PhD. They think that. But for me, like Magic Johnson, do you know Magic Johnson?
Yes, yes.
He's a player of basketball. He says that, for example, when you can't succeed in this way, you can take another way. Don't mind some guys to see you to talk about something in you. It's not not it's not a matter for you.
Yeah.
Your own will. It is to succeed in our your objects.
Yes. And succeed in all your objectives. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and that's where this comes in, is like if you're creating a change model, right? So right now you're telling me what you know to be true. That would, let's call it your research, but there's a whole demarginalized group of students because they don't finish, right? But how are you going to strengthen the ability for them to be able to have completion? So that might be a multifaceted problem, right? What's the change model? The change model to make sure that they stay at the university, or the change model so that they can stay, or the change model so that they have the skills to be able to stay, right? So you see, there's various questions there. So what do they need to do? What do they need to learn? Do they have the skills necessary? And then also, do they have the ability? So it's almost like knowledge, attitude, and skills. Okay. So the problem is, of course, that there's a changing cultural climate. A lot of youngsters will say, well, I'll go somewhere else, or I'll just go get a job. I don't really want to stay at the university the entire time, right? And then their desire, what's their desire to learn and improve? Are they going to be rewarded for learning and improving themselves? Like if they get a job without finishing their degree program versus if they get a job after they finish their degree program, is there a difference in their salary or a difference in the conditions of work? Or is it the same? Like if
Well,
somebody goes to get a job right
for
away and they don't finish their degree versus somebody who finishes the 4 years, right?
example, about for me, for example, I think that you can make together. That is say that, for example, when you have when you finish your two first year in university, I think that in this in the third year you can uh, start it to join like officer our organization to make a training professional,
Right. Okay.
to make a professional and to continue to study in university.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is, for example, when you learn only, and you not make a practice, you will not good about in your job and your speciality.
Yes.
Speciality. For example, me, for example, I want to be an expert about my, for example, like accountant and finance, and I learn in university, and I join an officer to make a training professional, and I own something and to help me to buy some book and necessary about my studies.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Right, but it looks to me like that's something that needs to be reevaluated, right? Because that model seems to only be working
Hello,
for some people. It doesn't work for everybody.
Hello, Mr. Moye.
hello,
Oh,
Theodore, Dr. Lavicia and Dr.
hi. Yeah, we were just discussing the change of labor
Rahman.
and how
Yeah,
specific
Mudumbai.
How are
Hi,
you?
the example of
I'm fine.
Mr.
And you?
Dion.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. And you?
I'm fine. Yeah.
Good. Yeah,
Oh,
so you can help that this document will help you define some of these issues so that you can look
right.
very
They
specifically
are
at your project. Okay.
they are two formations in Senegal: the professional formation and research formation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
So professional and a research. Yeah.
I don't
Mr.
understand.
Moye, can you remember us? Tell us about your project. Your project.
What was your project?
I don't under,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand, Theodore.
Yeah, your project. The project that
Your
you're working.
idea, your project, what you are working on.
Hey, my project. Uh, Actually, I am a professor of quality management.
Right. Okay.
Yes. How is going with
Uh,
your course?
I am a professor of quality management.
Yeah.
I sent a course of the private university.
Right. And then do you, like in the case where Mr. DNA was explaining to us, you're teaching master students then, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then where would you like to see TQM expand to as part of your project? So when you're looking at all of the different components of your project, this Playmaker book will help you take a look at each different component so that you'll be able to better engage your European counterparts and collaborators into the teamwork to help you expand the horizon from Senegal to a more global outreach, right? So taking a look then at, we were just talking about this, that the young people perhaps at the university lack some of those skills, right? So maybe they lack either knowledge, or they lack a skill, or even maybe attitude. Maybe their attitude.
Dans 30 minutes que j'ai fini un cours que j'ai fait en ligne là.
Yeah. So looking at who are the candidates? Who are the people that you're working with, right? So you can explain that in that square. And then revisiting your project. What is the philosophy behind your project? What is your philosophy? You want to have a philosophy that goes towards a have more people, more students, or more projects that are working and growing within the university's research facilities. What are the people involved, right? And what's the process that you're going to embark on, right? So it really helps you to define bit by bit what your project is, right? So how is total quality management at the university transformational for the students who participate? Or how is accounting and finance and economics transformational? How can we shift it, right? So we know what the horizon is right now, but how can we move it? How can we create a new stance for this, right? How can we make it fresh and reboot it, right? So it might be that in knowing who your students are, right? So that, let's just back it up. In knowing what the problem is, and in knowing who are the students, the potential leaders, and in knowing who these young people are, right? How can we improve on what they need to do? How can we transform that? So both of you are in a university setting. One of you is already a professor teaching quality management. The other one is working toward becoming a professor to teach accounting. So you're in different stages of the race. So how can you both contribute to that whole transformational makeup of the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that the incoming students have, so that your new students can be the leaders of the future, right? That it won't be so few, right? Because this is happening all over the world, especially after the pandemic, is that people are saying, well, maybe I don't have to, if I can learn from my home, from online learning, maybe I don't need to go and sit in the classroom, although we all know that that's a different experience, right? So how is it transactional? So think about those aspects. Or participative leadership, or delegative leadership. Is there any aspect of what you're doing as a leader in your field that is either transactional, participative, or delegative, right? So really chunking down your thoughts. Okay? So understanding then, what is the service? Is it teach, or is it research, or is it to let people know, Senegal, you already are very innovative and you are on the cutting edge, right? So who are you, right, in your project, and what's the core values, and what do you do, and what do you bring to the table? So there's a lot of people that talk about quality management, but not everybody actually knows how to execute that, right? So we have a really good blueprint from Deming But how many people, you know, they can read the books, they can take a look at it, but they still don't know how to implement it, right? So maybe there's a lot of things around being a CPA and accounting practices, but can they actually implement it? Can they use it, you know, in their everyday work? So thinking about what is the message behind your project. Taking a look at what's that vision that you have for your country. What's the university thinking about? Is the university wanting to grow more students, or is the university wanting to attract more endowment so that you can do more research? So what are the powers that be at the university? What's the direction the university is moving in? What do you guys think? Are they attracting more students, or are they attracting more research? Or both?
For example, sometime right now, for example, some guy says that the future for the world is Africa.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For me, it would be to Africa, but at first condition to change our behavior and mentality is very. When you talk about Africa, we have a to have a good behavior, like to be, I don't know the word in English, at French I know, discipline.
Yes, yeah, the same as in English. Yeah, you have to have self-discipline. In fact, that's what I was thinking about. Yes, completing the PhD. Really, when you think about self-discipline.
When we refer, for example, to Japan, have a lot of difficult, for example, in we discipline, have a good, and we work anytime they work. In Japan, our for example, entreprise only the morning only, not nine. They have few entrepreneurs work at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I
for
think
example, and for about the project, for example, for me, I want to be a good accountant, expert accountant and finance. Why not? For example, to help at first my country to have a good manager about their economics. But we have a lot of trouble in our economics, like the government. Every time they are robber, for example, the economic portfolio. Finally, for example, in Senegal right now, some guys say that why not the president booked a plan like for in our sector in Minto a lot of money. In our country, we have a lot of problem. For example, they can buy a plan, but for example, to correspond it our economics.
Yeah, so it has to match. There's got to be some kind of a congruency.
Yeah.
Right. So it's got to be aligned and congruent. Right. So I think that's one of the things you want to take a look at is all of you in your team that are participating of this project. One thing that you all have in common is that you all have been able to identify that there is a pre-existing problem, but that you're taking a look at the fact that it requires a mindset that's different, a change of heart, if you will, right? It's a shift. So it's not like if you can be able to get there one step at a time, because that would take too long. Okay. So you have to take a different approach. You need to be looking at a different approach, right? And looking at different procedures means you need to be able to build a new culture that has a different mindset. And that, of course, if you think about it, how do we communicate that to people is really through a form of education, right? So if you teach that, if you have people practice that, if you have people in the milieu of it, right, completely bathed and engaged in that, it's almost like you have to practice what you preach, right? So even like Deming used to say, if you want something, if you want it to be lean and effective, you have to train lean and effective, right? So if you want it to something to be innovative, then you have to train in an innovative way. So if you want them to have a different mindset, you have to almost become a model of that mindset, right? And yeah, I think I agree with you. A lot of people are looking at Africa as a new horizon because you're going to have to shift it. You can't go through the same steps that, for example, China went through, right? Obvious reasons. The communist regime that influences a lot of what happened. If you think about, Cuba, China, Vietnam, these were three remaining successful examples of communism. But for example, in Cuba, they really had a hard time with food, basic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in China, they didn't have that problem. So that just goes to show how, and I just use that because it's a simple example where there's only three true communist countries, right? So we can look at them in the palm of our hand, right? But when you look at the rest of the world with different combinations of democracy and different kind of political situations, then that gets complicated. But that's where building internal culture within your group allows you to make one step towards positive change. And in both of your situations as being professors or teachers of higher education, you're in a very unique situation because you can influence these young people in a new and different way, right? So keeping it simple, but keeping it global. Huh? So it's almost like keeping something simple in terms of what the mindset is, but also looking towards a global shift as a global society, right? So globalization. And globalization has a set of skills that are very specific, right? And those skills are attainable. So knowledge economy skills are attainable. So this model of the different parts of a workday, of different shifts, right, of the Japanese or the Chinese, where they have different shifts of work, versus in Africa or in the Caribbean, we don't, have that kind of shifts of work. But that idea of a shift is an industrial model, where now you're looking at a quantum economy. Okay. So in a quantum economy, what should the best model be for a work day? Does it mean that what can you do with a certain amount of hours to make that yield more, right? Because that's what you're saying, is that bringing about the measurable. So that's why I'm bringing this page up in the Change Maker book. What is something measurable that you can measure? If you're only going to work 5 hours a day or 3.5 hours a day, like in Latin America, people have to take a siesta, right, in the middle of the day because it's so hot. So they work in the morning, then they go home, have lunch, and then they sleep for a couple hours, and then they go to work another couple of hours. Well, how can you make that time more productive? Okay, so that would be something. Think about what's measurable and how to make it productive. And then think about how you can coach the young people that you interact with. How could you train them so that they can become examples of that, right? And then, of course, thinking about, feedback. What do you do to be able to document that? How do you make that a new norm? How do you make that the new way of being, the new mindset? You see what I'm saying? So you can make that change. You can have that impact even in the small aspects of your university classroom, right? So how can you bring that future forward into this now moment, right? How can you have them practice those things, right? And then really marking down in your change maker playbook, how do you do it? What are the benefits from it? Where can you see it work? How will this have a long lasting impact, not only on your team, but also on your project and the students that you're influencing in your project? What are the outcomes for building capacity in your country? I mean, if you think about it, you guys are really in a pivotal position because you're at the university. So change is going to either take place as a grassroots situation from entrepreneurial efforts, right, in the business sector. And how do we also make it take root in the university or higher education setting? And then, of course, a trickle down effect, right? Higher education, high school, junior high school, elementary school, kindergarten, nursery school. So it's like a cascade, right? So using this this change maker book, I encourage you all, because this is just for you. You write little notes in here. You could write it in French. You could write some words in English. You could even draw some diagrams or pictures. But you'll notice that every single page is a small aspect of a bigger whole. So that as you're looking at these small aspects and addressing and thinking about them, reflecting on them, and committing to paper, right? As a tactile kinesthetic, when you're writing it down, there's a certain power to that, right? When you write it down. I, for one, usually recommend that if you can, print it out on paper and actually write it with your hand. You know what I mean? Not just with the keys of a typewriter, because there's that connection that happens when you're doing that handwritten thing. And then later on, when you put it into the computer, then you're editing it and you're fleshing it out, and then you're going to make it into your presentation. Okay. So what are those final aspects, right? What are the actions for change management, right? So we're looking here at different things that you can do. We just talked about this, about alignment, right? And confirmation. Maybe the government is saying something, but they're not confirming, getting down into action with the people, right? A lot of times governments do that, right? They think that something's happening, but that's not happening in the street, right? Reflected in the actions of the people. So how do you do cultural change? So strategies that lead to action. And you can start that, like in your case with your very own work towards your PhD, or in your case of teaching master's degree students or future PhD candidates at the research level of quality management. The model is there, right? But how many corporate people have found that they don't know how to implement lean? They just don't know how to do it, right? Because they're not using it as a model, right? So what's the strategy? What is the performance? Okay. Is it about motivation? Is it performance? Is it result? Is it something very unique to Senegal? Is it something unique to Dakar? Is it something unique to the university? Trickle down, trickle down, trickle down, trickle down, drill it down. Where is the heart of the problem so that you can find a solution? Okay. Building internal change agents where each one of you is a model. Okay. So as you can see, as you go through these pages, this will really help you articulate all of your thoughts so that when you finally do your presentations and then later on when you actually meet up with these European counterparts, you can really explain and say what it is that you need and you want, right? So wants and needs, two different things. So want and a need. And is that something that you're doing in terms of thinking from it at a higher level of thinking? Because I think that's one of the things we've heard over and over again is that maybe some of the young people aren't using higher level thinking or critical thinking. Maybe they need to learn that. Maybe that's a learned ability. Yeah, I don't know. You tell me. Are they good problem solvers? Right? So can they look at it from these different perspectives? What are the needs there? Do they need empowerment? Do they need validation? Do they need to get rid of an obstacle? You know, what are the needs of different teams? Yeah. And then think about it in terms of those great leaders that you had thought about. How do they answer these problems? How do they address these things? How did they achieve success? So I really invite you to fill this in as much as possible. You know, work on it for the next couple of weeks so that when we have our presentations at the end of June, you can really go deeply into it, right? You can go deeply into talking about what your project is going to be targeting, okay? And that is going to help you with your European counterparts. Yes, Theo?
Saying that we can ask Ibrahim also to support the learners.
Okay. Yeah. So then there's actually a part here for
to print this book.
Yeah. Okay. In the meantime, you could certainly type into it. I think you can do that right on your computer. Yeah. You can put a text box in there and write your ideas. You can even just do it on a notebook. You know, like use this in your phone and write your ideas in the notebook. Okay.
Is it understandable about the, if we ask Mr. Abdulrahman, is it possible for you to use this book?
Did everyone understand what we were getting at with this playbook? Yeah, is it understandable? Yeah.
That is says that we have a question about the playbook and we will answer about it.
Right. Okay. And
about
then
the presentation.
yeah, and I hope that that helps you to gather your thoughts very deeply, right? So the whole point of this is to be able to get drill down, you know, to make it more and more clear, more and more focused, deeper, so that you know within that deepness comes the discipline, right? To be able to do something, right? So it's almost like self-discipline, and I agree with both of you on that. I've always thought that that's the whole point of a PhD program. If you think about it, it's about acquiring that level of self-discipline because you become an expert at something, right? So that holds it by itself, the fact that the knowledge, the attitudes, and the skill that is developed. And that's pretty much the same thing we're talking about here. As leaders, you are in a pivotal position to inspire and influence and create change. Henceforth, the change maker playbook. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or questions for now? And you can always text on WhatsApp, and we can always answer you on WhatsApp too.
We will be sending more materials on WhatsApp.
Hello,
Wednesday,
about
right?
the playbook, we will send you in our email.
Yeah, I think that's true, right, Mr. Thiel? You sent it
Yes.
in their email, but actually didn't I think I also put it in WhatsApp because I was experimenting to see if the
Yes.
file fit there. And I
Mhm.
believe that it actually did fit. Let me just check on my other device while I've got you all on the phone. And then because I think it does fit. Let me see. I did put it in. Let's see if I'm saying yes. Yesterday, I tried to put it in at 8:18 in the morning Atlanta time, but yesterday, and you could see the cover of it, and it actually fit. So the file is actually inside your WhatsApp. Okay.
Okay.
We have a smaller group because you really get to have an opportunity to discuss very detailed aspects of your individual situation. So I express my gratitude to both of you for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we'll see
Thank you
you
very
on
much.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
If you
Huh?
have questions, you can feel free to text on WhatsApp.
Yeah. See you next Wednesday.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye.